get a handle on what we do. And if you're not new, then there's a couple of new reminders here. So let's talk about that, okay? The first one is we're going to cover both Usign and JIFF and any other future products. If you'll notice, I've added some logos to our opening screen, so we'll be covering some of those products today and in the future, as we always do. I cannot answer support questions. Those have to go to support. Make sure that they're support questions. Best place to put questions on how do I do something is to put them in the group. It's easy to figure out how to do that inside of the group. And so make sure that you put those how do I questions inside the group, because there's lots of people who are extremely capable and able to help when they can. And so, Pete, good to have you. Let's see, who else do we have? We have Sylvie coming to us from Montreal. So thank you for announcing yourself. I appreciate that. Your questions are important, but they always need to relate to the day's topic, particularly when I'm flying solo. They have to stay on topic. And so let's make sure that we do that. I don't have answers to pricing and questions about pricing and timelines. I just don't have that unless I have been given that. And if I say I don't, I just don't. And asking the question multiple times won't help. So Stefan, good to have you as well. I don't have questions about partners offers. So when an email goes out asking you about, and then you come in and you say, I need to know this, I don't have the answer to those things. This is a training webinar focusing on the products inside of Usign. So let's make sure that we keep our questions focused and on that topic there. Okay. So having said that, we do have a resource document. Let me grab the URL for that, and I will make that available to you all right now. I will be updating that very soon, okay? So there is the document that answers many of the questions that people ask repeatedly. And as I said earlier, David had asked a question about replays, and that's a legitimate question if you've not ever been on before. I just looked this morning. There are 124 webinar replays that are available in that link that Herman provided for David a while ago. So the webinars are a great place to look for resources, and we do an awful lot of how do you do this in the webinars. And so if you're looking for answers, that's a great place to look for answers at. Don't hesitate to ask in the group, but asking how do I do a drag and drop in support can overwhelm support. And support's kind of behind right now, so let's make sure that we keep them caught up by asking good, high quality questions and doing the things that would be helpful to you and to them. And you know, many of us can answer a lot of those little questions as we go. Okay. The next thing is on the agenda, and I always try to share a little inspiration with you. And this is my inspiration with you this morning. Happiness is not something that you postpone for the future. It's something you design for the present. I like that word, design. It's something that and in order to design, the designs always begin inside my head, and then it goes down on whatever it is I'm trying to create. And so let's just, as we go into this year, let's remember that happiness is something that we can design right now. We put it in our head. We deal with the things that we have to deal with, and we move forward. So just want to share a little inspiration with you. I try to do that every time that we meet, and so that was my inspiration for today. Okay. Answering the questions on the replays right there, 124 replays, and Rose has caught up all of the replays from previous weeks, and so we're up to date now with all the replays that are available. And when you open up the replay, she has given you a brief agenda of the things that are covered in that replay on that webinar, and so I think you'll find that very helpful, and I appreciate Rose being able to do that. Okay, the next thing is we're going to talk about using your tools, and this question came up in the group, and so I'm going to play with this just a little bit today and show you how this is done inside of JIFF. We haven't said much about JIFF for a couple of weeks, and so I thought this would be a good time to do that. I want to put this under the category of using your tools. The question came up about adding sound to the videos. in JIFF sign? Well, JIFF sign creates GIFs, but there is a way to create a video with it, and there is a way to add sound to it. And so I demonstrated that in this little video that I had posted here, and to show how that you can do lots of things, and it's a combination of tools. And we talk about the combination of tools, a suite of tools frequently. Okay, any questions about that as we go? I appreciate Sue jumping in and answering that, and then Jean was able to do the same thing. And so I decided I would just do a little demo of that. And we'll talk about that demo in just a little bit. Okay. No questions. We will move on. I'm going to have to ask you for questions at certain times because it's easier for me to do that when I'm flying solo. Okay. And I took last week's information and I created a little GIF to remind you of using JIFF Design as a way to demo things. And so I created a very simple little demonstration of what we had covered that day, put that in a GIF that would play, posted that in the Facebook group to encourage people to see what you can do using JIFF Sign to demo. Are y'all doing that? Let me ask this question. This should probably be a poll question, but by myself, it's hard to do poll questions. Are you using JIFF Sign to demo? So let me ask you that question this morning. Are you using JIFF Sign to demo? This is a great way to demo. Herman says he is. Dwayne says that he is. And if you don't have the product, that's fine. I'm just trying to find out who has that and who's using it as a demo. This is a great way to demo something. And what I did was created this studies and reflection last week, which was done inside of Usign. But this is a great way to be able to demonstrate all of the capabilities with a client and say, this is what I'm looking for, or this is the possibilities, or we could do it like this. And I use JIFF Sign a lot to demo. And well, David, hopefully we'll give you some information today that will help you to begin to use the product, because it's a great tool. And as we have plugged away here with it over the several months it's now been available in the public, I'm finding all kinds of really, really cool ways to use that in my business and use that with other people. And this is one of the most common things that I do, is use it to demo. It's easy to grab it and do a screen recording. And I'll show you when we open this up some screen recordings that I have done that will help you to understand. This is a great way to demo this. And I can create this and post it into Facebook, and they've got that almost instantly because Facebook likes GIFs. Okay. I would agree with you, Gene. I think some people are afraid that there's a huge learning curve with this. And I'm going to be honest, I was a little bit concerned about that too. But it's maybe the lowest learning curve. There's not too many moving parts to it. It's a pretty complex kind of creation tool, but it doesn't have a lot of moving parts. And so the learning curve is fairly low. Talking about the community, this was a really interesting. I just want to give a little shout out to those who helped to contribute to this question. A lady had a question, or a person had a question here about a font, and what was discovered was that the font was having an issue itself. And so sometimes what happens is that there is a problem that's not on the platform. The problem is having to do with how the font was supported. And so that was kind of cool. I was glad to see that. And this is a good example of asking those questions in the community that might have required sending a support ticket in, but it was easier to answer this question, and other people were able to find the answer to it very quickly. And so this was a great learning process, and I appreciate it when people will do that, not to complain in the group, but to say, how do I do this? And I'm having a little issue with this. And then oftentimes somebody else has already run across that, and they've got a simple solution, or they at least have an answer. And in this case, they at least had an answer. Okay. The next thing, and we're going to do this later, Jay Lynch is on this morning, and Jay posted this, and this was his attempt at creating a logo. And I love the logo. By the way, I just love the logo. So I said, hey, Jay, do you mind if we use that today? I want to play with this a little bit. I want to talk about want to talk about your logo, if you don't mind. And Jay and I have had several conversations, so I felt confident that I could do that. And so today we're going to play with Jay's logo in this webinar that was created in Uzyme. And I'm going to share with you some things having to do with branding and creating logos and creating product advertisements and those kinds of things, which is part of the reason why most of us have Uzyme. Is that right? I really like this. I'm going to show you a couple little things, a little tweaks to it, and little things that I would that I didn't see the first time I saw it, but I started to see the more I looked at it, and so I'm going to be sharing that with you in just a little bit. Okay, I'm going to show you how we did that, and I'll show you how you can do that with your clients' stuff as well. All right. Any questions about that? This is going to be fun. I promise it'll be fun. Let me talk about branding for a little bit. Because this leads me to a branding conversation. Reason why people have logos is because they're establishing some branding, and so this branding issue comes up a lot. And if you're new to design, if you're new to marketing, then you'll hear the word branding a lot. Sometimes the word branding is inappropriately used, but branding is not about your logo. It's not about your color. It's not about your fonts. It's about who you are. And your brand has to be a reflection of who you are. Now, Jay used this because he's gone by Jaybird for a long, long time. And so that makes sense because that's kind of who he is. So I get that. So we're going to talk about branding. Give me just a moment to... we're going to talk about this branding issue for just a minute. I was working for a major insurance company back, and I can't remember what year it was because I was with them for 12 years. But one year, and it seems to me like it was 2005, they decided it was time for a rebrand. Now, they'd rebranded 2 or 3 times during my connection with them, both at the home office and in the field. And so they come up with this great branding concept, and they spent a lot of money, and I mean a lot of money, going through, looking at colors, looking at fonts, looking at designs, looking at images, trying to create the perfect brand. And then because I was their senior sales trainer, they called me in and asked me, they called me into the office and asked me if I would be the brand ambassador. If I would take 3 months out of training and go across the country as the brand was rolled out and be the brand ambassador and train people on the understanding of the brand. And my first thought was, the moment you have to train somebody on what your brand is, you're in trouble. Because if I have to explain my brand based upon the things that I have in it, then I've made it far too complicated. And they had their name with these little multicolored dots dancing all around the name. And they wanted those multicolored dots each to represent something. People don't have time for that. Branding needs to be very simple. And that's the point I'm trying to make. Make sure that the brand is a simple, easy to communicate. That's what I love about Jay's design right here. Very simple. And we're going to take this brand apart in just a minute. And I'm going to show you how, when we get to the canvas, I'm going to show you how I did that. But I've reproduced it here, and then we're going to play with it. And I put it on a background because I needed to have the color there for me to be able to see that. But we'll talk about it when we get to it. Okay? Are y'all looking forward to that, or am I just barking up the wrong tree here with branding because it got very, very quiet? So the next thing is, and we're going to take the branding. We're going to go back up here to branding. We're going to take the branding. We're going to take Jay's brand, and then we're going to apply to it what Bertrand has done for us a couple of years ago, and I've done it a couple of times in this webinar, Friday webinar series. And it used to be available on your dashboard when you first opened up Uzyme. Well, it's available inside of support, but I call it the magic design formula. And because what happens is, how many of you have ever done this? I'm going to ask this question. How many of you have ever stared at a blank screen, at a blank canvas, and said, what do I do next? Just you're going, okay, where do I start? What do I do next? I think we've all done that. We've all seen this and went, now what? I agree, Donald. I've thought that way myself sometimes. We just stare at a blank canvas and go, where do I start? I'm supposed to. I want to create like what Jay did here, but I'm looking at this going, where do I begin? And I've got this set up for a Facebook ad right here, but where do I start? What do I put in here? What's required in order for me to make this work? So we usually start right here, and we don't have anything. And so we have this brilliant webinar, which I called the Magic Design Formula. That's not really what the name of it is. And I can't remember what the name was because I forgot to write it down this morning. But we have this Magic Design Formula that was done by Bertrand. And it's the elements of a design. And the elements of a design are really, really important. Okay? And because my mind went as blank as my screen did up here. But we have this... that we have certain elements that make every single design work. And there's only 4. So let's take a look at what the 4 are. How many of you remember one of the times when I've done this webinar for you on a Friday, or I've talked about this webinar? How many of you can remember what those 4 things are? Tell me if you remember that, and it'll give me a grade as a trainer here. Any of you remember that? Okay, Vanessa says she does. Pete says he does. Good. At least we have 2. I feel better already. Okay, so let's take that apart. Let's take a look at what it is and what are those 4 elements of a design. And they are as follows. There is a background. The reason why I put Jay's thing on his logo here was because I need to have a background on it. It doesn't hang in space. His background, his logo, as was appropriately, and this is the right way to do it, he had made that logo transparent. The problem was I have a hard time dealing with the transparency, so I had to put it on the background, because you don't put a transparent anything out anywhere. It's always sitting on a background. So the background is an important part of the puzzle. It's an important element in the design. Now, in this case, this background was intended to make the objects in, or the elements in the billboard. This is a picture of a billboard, by the way. It makes the elements in that billboard, makes them stand out. They're not lost in the background. They're actually enhanced by the background. Does that make good sense? So the first thing is the background. I always have to take the background into consideration. Jay provided this element to me, and in providing the element, what he did was he gave me a transparent background with a black design. Now, if this was going to go in a WordPress site that had a black header, it would disappear. So I have to start with, what's my background? Where am I going to put this thing first so that I know what to do with it? So the background is extremely important. I can't use a background that makes the other elements in it disappear. Does that make good sense to everybody? So then the next thing is, and I'm going to take this apart in a different fashion here, all right? The next thing is, because there's 2 very, very obvious things in this picture. The first very obvious thing is the product. The second very obvious thing is the tagline. All right? Do you see that? See the product, and do you see the tagline? Though, and I want you to see that share happiness as a tagline, because that's exactly what it is. It's not just a comment, it's a tagline. Okay? So we have the product. What's the most prominent image on this billboard? It always has to be the product. You want the product to be the most prominent image on a background. You always want the product to be because the product is where value takes place. The product is where the exchange of money takes place. Coke doesn't make any money if you don't buy the product. So the product is the important thing. All right. Now, the tagline is intended to entice the product. All right. Yeah, and I agree with what you're saying, Donald, and others. The tagline here is intended to enhance the product. So the first thing that you notice is the product. The second thing is the tagline. That's how important the tagline becomes. And then what's the least prominent in this? Now, obviously, it's on the labels here, but it's the Coca-Cola logo, right? So a lot of focus goes into logos, but frequently the logo is the least visible object in a really great design. And this is a really great design. Okay. So we're going to take this apart now. We're going to learn how to master our tools using the very things that we've just talked about here. We're going to open up the canvas and we're going to begin with the end in mind. We're going to do exactly the same thing that I tell you all the time about making sure that you start with what do I want to output. When I was talking about the background a while ago, I have to begin with the end in mind. I've got to figure out what is it that I'm going to put that on and how am I going to use it to help me to design it. Y'all understand how important it is to begin with the end in mind? Tell me in the chat if you think it's important to begin with the end in mind. That's where you start. Here's what happens. You start here and you don't know where to go. But if you start with the end in mind, what am I going to do with this? Where am I going to put it? Where's it going to go? I'm going to put this on my WordPress site that has a black header background. Okay, then that changes how I'm going to do this. All right. You have to know where you're going. Exactly, Donald. Thank you. So you always begin with the end in mind. You have to start there. All right. The next thing is we're going to show you how to go about doing some magic little things to this that will help you. Yes, I agree with you, Teresa. Reverse engineering. Now that's exactly what we're doing. We're starting out with what do I hope to accomplish with that, and then I'll do my best to try to answer the questions that you have posted as we go. Okay, so that is my plan. That is my agenda for today. Let me switch screens. Give me just a moment so I can switch screens, and we'll start to take a look at, first of all, JIFF sign, and then we're going to take a careful look at Jay's design. We're going to play with it a little bit, see what we can do that may help us to get that fear of staring at a blank screen, get that out of our head, and know where we can go. Okay, so I apologize for the hiccup. I don't know why it's doing that. We've tested and tested, and we can't seem to get that fixed. This is the least trouble that we've had with any platform, though. So pretty glad for that. All right, you should be looking at my GIF screen here, and these are my saved GIFs in my GIF platform. And this is a good example of taking this and using your GIF design program as a screen capture and using this to give an explanation. Somebody asked questions about logo design and where was it going? Well, here's a list of where it's going. And so you could just scroll through that, post that any place. It's a great tool to be able to show how something works, okay? And you're able to give instruction here. I could take that. For those of you who are new and haven't used this before, I can take that, put it in a mock-up. If you're a member of the mock-up club and you have the templates for this, you can put this on something that would be appropriate. In this case, a computer screen is very appropriate. All right. Now, I can go over here, take a look at what I did here this is that studies and reflections, and you see that, but that isn't how that is not how I posted it in Facebook. So let me show you how I posted it in Facebook. I went over here to the mockups and I went down and I found what I thought would be an appropriate kind of a style for that. And there's several that I could have used. I used this one right here's the one I used. But That's where and keep this in mind as you're doing your GIFs, that your mock-ups, the border around the outside of that, become a great way to enhance the GIF that you have. Okay, and I use this in this case. This wooden design around the outside of this looked really cool for for what we were doing here in this very rural looking scene and that kind of a thing. So making sure, so one of the huge advantages of the mock-ups is that you can actually use the mock-ups as a way of enhancing the GIF that you have. It won't make it better. If you have a really stinky GIF, it's not going to make it look any better, but it does kind of enhance the look of it. As you saw when I had posted that in the but make sure that you do this. Now, I'm going to go back over here. I'm going to show you how I arrive at that. For those of you who are brand new, here's how I arrive at it, okay? I have several options of being able to create a GIF. I can upload a GIF here from a video, from images, or I can record the screen. Now, somebody said the other day that it didn't have ping files in there as images. Well, a ping file is an image, and so that it does do that. Just keep in mind that images include ping files or JPEG files. So this studies in reflection that I have right here, what I did to create that was I went into Usign, created a number of images, and then I took those images and I posted them. And see, there are, what is there, 24. I had 24 of those. I'm not going to do all 24 because it takes a little while for those to load. But the way you do that, are you seeing my screen? You are not seeing my screen. I'm sorry. Susan, I'm going to get to that in just a second. What I realize is that you're not seeing my whole screen. So hang on a second, and I'm going to change this. Hopefully I can change this. But when you upload the images, you can do that. Let me just let me grab something here that I can put in. Susan, you should see, and now you can see my screen here, okay? What you should see is you should see right down here MP4, all right? I can save that as an MP4. You have the option of doing that. If this bell right here at the top, if that bell is red, then you're not using the most recent version, okay? But you can save this as an MP4 right here. So when I save this, I uploaded it as a video, so I wouldn't necessarily want to save it as an MP4. What I had done over here is, in this case, I had actually brought this in, and I'll show you what I did here. You won't be able to see all of it, but you'll see part of it. Is I had taken all of, and this gets a little fuzzy out here, but I had taken all of those slides, all of those images, all 24 of those, and put them in as a GIF. Then I saved them as an MP4. All right. Click that button right there, and I saved them as an MP4. So what I was doing in essence was I was taking the individual slides, putting them in JIFF sign, and then exporting an MP4. Is that clear? Does everybody understand? Susan, you should have a bell right there next to next to the top. There should be a bell there. That bell's been there since the very first. Okay, then just follow along with me, Susan, and if you run into other questions, we'll be able to help you in the group. I promise. It's really easy to do. So you save it as an MP4. I saved it as an MP4. Then I brought it into my video editor and put some other cool stuff around the outside of it and did those kinds of things with it. But you have the option of being able to do that. All right. Now I can save this as an MP4 right here. Click on save, and it will save it inside of JIFF sign as an MP4. Yes, I saved the slides right here. These slides were, I created the slides in Usign. This is why these tools, all the tools are so important. I created the slides inside of Usign. Inside of Usign, I then downloaded them individually, and I numbered them 0001 through 24. And then I imported them, and they played just like this, just like you're seeing on the screen right now. So I also had the option of exporting them as an MP4. You see right here, this is a JIFF, this is an MP4. I had the option of exporting it as an MP4. I can then download the MP4 and put it in a video editor, put sound with it. So lots of cool stuff you can do with that. You can do images in a video editor and create a video with that, but you can also do it as a JIFF. Okay, you can do it inside of JIFF side. Lots and lots of ways to accomplish the task. So you become that problem solver we're talking about all the time. Okay. All right, give me a moment. I need to switch my screen to the canvas so that we can do the Jay's logo design. All right. Okay, there you go. Now that's the support screen that people were talking about a while ago that has all of the webinar replays in it. All right, like I said, we're up to 124 webinar replays there. If you're looking for something to do on a Sunday afternoon, not a bad thing to do. Load up a webinar and listen to it. And Rose has done a great job of telling you when to start. Okay, I go back in and edit them now so that we are not working on the introductions and those kinds of things, because I don't want you to have to endure the introductions. If you're watching a replay, you don't need to do that. So we start right when we start the conversation. All right. So this is what I did. I took Jay's design. He loaded that in a transparent background. Get this over here so it's appropriately viewable. And I got it in a transparent fashion, but I put it on a colored background just because it was easier for me to see. It doesn't have to be easier for you, but I made it easier for me to see. The problem, Eric, I'll answer that question. The problem with making a GIF clickable is you're turning it on and off when you click it. So it's not clickable. Now, there is software that will allow you to do that, but even it gets confused. Okay. I've found it's much better. And you've seen me do that to just, and I took a finger and I pointed down to have people click on the button. And so pretty easy to do stuff. So, but I took Jay's design. I tried to reproduce it as close as possible. Now, keep in mind that Jay had sent this to me and it had been transferred back and forth. And so there's a little bit of a loss in the process of that. So I took Jay's design, I reproduced it as closely as I could. This is his original design. And so you'll see what happens here. And I superimpose this on here. We're really, really close to the original design. So this is what I saw when Jay posted this. All right, so give me a second here. I want to line these up like they were. And this is what I saw when I looked at Jay's design. And this is, what's his tagline? Somebody answer for me, what's his tagline? Christopher, here's the best thing to do. Post that in the group and screenshot it. That way we know what you're doing. It's a little bit difficult to translate that verbiage into a visual design, but just post that in the group and we'll be glad to help you with it. Okay, everybody's saying that the tagline is designs, and it is. Say that it's not a there's not a tagline. There's actually is a tagline here, and I highly encourage Jay to take a look at this as a tagline. And the reason is because in Jay's original post, he said, I will change the word designs based upon what I'm offering. That makes it a tagline, correct? If he said, I'm going to change designs to GIFs, or I'm going to change designs to Facebook covers, then that becomes his tagline. Are you right? Are you all with me? Because this is his tagline. What I would do is this. I would take this. Now, somebody had said that the S needs to line up with the H, and I would tend to agree with that, okay? But watch what I do here. Because this is the tagline, then what I want to do is this. Because what's the most important thing? Because the taglines, there is no product. Now, I would expect this, remember, this is a logo, so it doesn't have a product attached to it. But I see designs as being his tagline. And so if I make the designs the bigger part of that, then it catches my attention. Are y'all with me? Jay, are you there? Do you see what we've done? I'm trying to make that tagline so that it brings, because people, I know this sounds confusing. People aren't looking for Jay Bird Lynch. They're looking for designs. So I want to make sure that when they see that, they get the design, because they're looking for designs. So I want to make sure that designs is what stands out. Now, I've changed the proportionality of this, and that's what I had told Jay I wanted to play with. I wanted to play with the proportionality. And that's what I want you to see, Teresa. I want you to see designs before you see Jay Bird Lynch. Now, what he did was he made these exactly the same size font, and this one's bold, so it stands out a little bit more. But the problem is I need to catch that person's attention, and I think it's a little bit better. Should the bird be a little smaller? Nah, that's our good question. AC, let me show you what I would do with bird, okay? So up here, what I would do, because bird is different, this is what I would do. Does anybody know what I'm going to do? Now, then you get to, if you make it fly, you get a little cutesy when you do that. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go over here to my color tool. I'm going to take my color picker right here. I'm going to do this. Did that make a difference? You hit it. Teresa, you're exactly right. Makes a difference. Makes it stand out differently. It recognizes this is Jay Lynch, but Bird Jay Bird is a nickname. And it gets my attention. It pulls the design together as well. I use the color picker, and so it is the same color. Now keep in mind, because this is a blend of color right here, it looks different than this is going to look. All right, I might want to make that blue a little bit deeper, but yes, it's picked with the color picker. So Jay, does that make sense? Now I can interchange these things. I can make this GIFs. All right. Now, what I would do if I made that GIFs, I'd just simply move this over here like that. Now, you got to keep in mind, the other thing to remember is, where am I going to use this? Am I going to have to use it in a horizontal plane? Am I going to have to use it in an upright plane? Where am I going to use this at? I got to begin with my end in mind. Okay. So this is a great thing to do. I could do this. Make that Facebook covers, and now I'm gonna have to play with this to make it work. All right. But if I was trying to make this all on the horizontal plane and make it fit, I could move this up here, and then I would have to do this. Y'all know what I just did? Let's see, I could do this. That's a little bit too high. And I could do that. But again, I'm looking at this like a tagline. And again, I could have easily have done this the flip side, okay? I could have made this color right here, same color here, like that, and done that, and made the bird here, put that back in black, and made unity on that. Now, here's what I'm going to tell you. And this is really important to remember because some people are giving me multiple options here. Remember, I said when we started, purpose of the branding is to reflect who you are. Keep it as simple as possible. Don't make this more complicated than you have to. And if you're happy with that, then be happy with it. There's a great article. I read that article this week. I read it frequently. It's called "A Button Color Will Not Save Your Business." And that's true. Button color is not going to save your business. So there's a lot of things that you can do, and you can drive yourself nuts trying to figure out, okay, should the E in cover be forward or backwards? Don't worry about it. Just when you're happy with it, be happy with it. Remember, happiness is not something in the distant future. It's something that you design today. So learn to be happy with what you have. I just saw a few little tweaks to this. I really like the design. This one right here, I really like this. I just saw some cool things that you could do with it. And I thought this would be the perfect way to bring this to especially as we get ready to start talking about logos and a lot of other things that you're going to be asked to help people with branding. You're going to have some branding to do yourself. And so I thought it would be good if we could bring some branding elements into what we're doing here. And now, while we're on that topic, I can come over here and I can save the brand, right? I can save that brand so that I always have that. All right, it's already saved right here. So I can save that brand so I always have that. Again, that's one of the branding tools that we created for you. All right. All right, are there any questions about that? Just little things that you can do once you've got the basic idea in your head, and then you just do something and you're happy with it. All right. What brought about the article? Excuse me. What brought about the article was this guy was working for Google, and Google was trying to decide between 47 different colors of blue. And 47 different colors of blue. Just pick one. And he said what caused him to leave was right there. You just nailed it, Teresa. What caused him to leave was they got in this lengthy discussion over should a border pixel be 4 pixels, a border image be 4 pixels, 5 pixels, or 6. And you know, the average human eye can't tell the difference. So that's nitpicking. And if you nitpick, it'll drive you crazy. Be happy with things and then learn how to tweak them. This is a tiny little tweak. Would I change it much after that? Probably not. Okay. I probably wouldn't change it much. This is something I could do this with. But again, remember what we're trying to do is we're trying to create something that captures attention. All right. And I'm looking for the thing that will best capture the attention. I agree, Matthew, that was nitpicking to a whole new level. But by the way, remember I said I was the brand ambassador? I sat in those brand meetings and I went crazy. I just literally went nuts. Are you kidding me? We're picking between 5 different colors of green. And all you're going to do is use it on a beach umbrella because it represents something. That's stressing over things you don't need to stress over and doesn't accomplish anything. All right. Yeah. Nitpickology. Lynn's got a great question right there, and I just did it a minute ago. What I would do here is just like that, save it. Because I put this on a big background, and I did that on purpose, but I would save that. So now I go over here to my groups, and it saved the whole page. But I would just save it as a group, okay? And then I've got it to do with as I please. Yeah, Donald, I could tell you some stories about that would drive you crazy. But I would save this. See, it saved the whole image right here because I got down in this. Let me ungroup this and you'll see what I'm talking about. I'll remove the original image and then that'll make it easier. I was getting in the wrong spot. Now, if I save that right here, and I go over here and I switch. Now, I had this grid screen up here. I forgot to tell you about that. I had the grid screen up here on purpose because the grid allowed me to line up the pieces of the image that Jay had sent to me. Okay. That's interesting, Chris. That's an interesting comment. All right, let me go over here and switch to business cards before we get finished because we're getting close. All right. Prints, business cards. There's a business card. Now I can go over here to my groups, pull that image in, and I can now position the whole thing like that. Okay. Does that answer your question, Linda? Okay. But that's what I would do. Now I've got this saved again. Okay. I've got that saved. I don't ever have to think about it again. Saved as a group. I pulled it in as a group. It's going to come in as its original size, but then I can reposition it. Now, are there any questions before we go? Christopher's asked a question that he's looking for an answer to. I'm not sure. Jay's asking a good question about should I use marketing designs as a catch-all tagline? Catch-all tagline here. This is taglineology from Eric. It's not from anybody else. It's just from Eric. Your tagline needs to be specific. All right. It needs to be fairly specific. And so I like the word designs because it is kind of general, but it's specific to design. Now, if you use the word marketing, then that's kind of, you want to be fairly specific in your tagline, just fairly specific. Okay. So Christopher's asking this question. Let's play with this for just a moment because I think I can kind of help with this, and I think this will be good for all of us. Okay. Yeah, you got to remember that, and here's part of the challenge that I have. We have a very international audience, and so I used the word funky the other day, and nobody knew what I was talking about. So you got to be careful about that too. Okay. Language is very, very specific. All right, let me go up here to Christopher's question about insurance. All right, now the logo itself, this portion of the logo itself, this is very off the cuff and very fast. Okay, in this case, you want to take the background and make it part of your overall message. All right, let's see if we can do this. We'll make this the background. I'm going to remove the grid lines. I'm going to turn the opacity of this way down. And that's very orange because my background's orange. So that allows you, what that allows you to do is, and hopefully this will make sense. This is really off the cuff with no time to think about it whatsoever, Christopher. Okay, Debbie's asked the question multiple times here about the Facebook cover the same as a Facebook header. The answer is yeah, kind of. So I take the logo, I put it on. Again, you want the tagline is going to be your big deal. All right. And I'm combining a number of things here, and I realize that. So please just follow along with me if you can, Christopher. Take a look at what happens here. Again, this is a background, which looks terrible. This is a background here. If I take that and make that this color here, put a border around the outside of that. Then it's going to stand out a little bit. But again, you can use an image. You can use an image as your background that relates to your topic. Okay, and then you see that this is not a very good example of this, but you get an idea of what I'm talking about. Okay. All right. When you look over here, Debbie, and I'll close with Debbie's question here. All right. These are the covers right here. You only have on Facebook a cover image, which is your top at the banner across the top, which is different for groups. It's different for pages, and it's different for your personal thing. So you have 3 different options there. Then you have a profile picture. You have the news feed, and then you have the ads. And that's what you have. Now you have some stuff for the store and a few other things that Facebook has added, but that's basically what you're looking at. Okay. Yes, I caught that, Tom. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, I may actually want to edit that out. But do you understand what I talked about? Well, if the insurance is, I don't have enough information to really be able to do that, Christopher. If the insurance has to do with fixing a broken down car, then that's kind of what and again, I didn't have very much. Kim, we're moving to a slightly different kind of position with that, and we're using aspect ratio rather than just the dimensions. Okay. And that's the reason why we're switching to Kim. That's the reason why we're switching to the aspect ratio rather than the pixels themselves. Business card template is under prints right there. Okay. No, the answer is you can't. You can't. No, that wasn't a question. That was a statement, Gene. Thank you. You have to have, no, I don't care what you're doing, you have to have permission to use the picture. Now, if you use the pictures, the images that are inside of Usign, you have permission to use those. Yes, what you do is this, because it's only going to be tiny. This is the answer to Kim's question, and then I'll be done. Okay? Switch to this, and if I need to change that, I can do this. I can make that, that was 1050, so let me make that 1100. When I do that like that, then all I'm going to do is grab all of the elements, and I'm going to make them slightly bigger. Okay? I'm going to take the off element canvas, and I can make them slightly larger and make it fit. So that's what you have to do. Okay? All right, folks, thank you so much for joining me today. We'll be back here next Friday, same time, same place, and I look forward to talking to you then.